Imagine standing in the middle of the Italian Alps. The clouds are low, the rain is coming sideways, and the roads are slick with a thin sheet of water. Most cars would surrender to that kind of weather. Most cars would feel nervous, restrained, almost apologetic. But then you hear it, a twin-turbo V12 firing up from somewhere behind you, the exhaust note bouncing off the mountains like a war cry. And you think to yourself, this isn't just a car, this is a statement. Welcome to the Pagani Utopia. And if you've never heard of it, buckle up. Because what you're about to see is going to completely change how you think about what a car can be. There's a word in Italian, utopia, and it means exactly what you think it does. A perfect world, an ideal that most people believe is impossible to reach. Leave it to Pagani to name their car after it. For 25 years, this small Italian manufacturer has been doing something that the big automakers with their billion-dollar budgets and armies of engineers have never quite managed to do. They've been making people feel something. Real, raw, unfiltered emotion. Every single time. The story starts back in 1999 with the Zonda. A naturally aspirated V12, a manual gearbox, and a design so wild it looked like it had driven straight out of a fever dream. Then came the Huayra in 2011, turbocharged, more powerful, more theatrical, and fitted with a sequential gearbox that felt like the future. And now, here we are, the Utopia. Only the third car this company has ever made. And if you think that number is small, good. That's the point. This isn't mass production. This is art. So what makes the Utopia different? Why does it matter in a world full of Lamborghinis and McLarens and Ferraris? Why should you care about a car that only a handful of people on Earth will ever own? Because the Utopia doesn't just raise the bar, it builds an entirely new bar, and then it sets it on fire. Let's talk about how this thing looks, because honestly, this is where Pagani lives and breathes. Stand back and look at the Utopia from a distance, and your brain will go through a few different reactions. First, confusion, then fascination, then pure, overwhelming admiration. It borrows from multiple eras without belonging to any single one. There are elements here that feel like 1930s art deco, flowing curves, sweeping lines, a kind of grandeur that feels almost old-fashioned. But then there are details that feel almost science fiction. Carbon fiber panels, exposed metalwork, aerodynamic surfaces that seem like they were sculpted by wind itself. The front end is aggressive but not brutish. There's a purposeful, almost predatory stare to it. The lighting signature low and wide, the front splitter pulling the nose toward the ground like it's hungry for the road. Walk around the side and those flanks hit you differently. Thin, precise slivers of polished metal trace the body lines from front to rear. Almost like jewelry, the kind of detail you'd expect to find on a Swiss watch, not a hypercar. The wheels are extraordinary. Carbon covers, intricate spoke patterns, and brake calipers that look like they belong in an art gallery. You genuinely stop and stare. The rear, and this is where it gets truly special, features 4 exhaust pipes arranged in a layout that's become iconic in the hypercar world. The taillights hover in their housing like glowing jewels, a deliberate nod to the original Zonda. And above it all, there's an active aerodynamic system. Flaps that rise and fall depending on speed and cornering load, managing drag and downforce with mechanical precision. But the single best angle? Look directly down from above. Through the glass panels in the roof, you can see into the car itself. And the combination of transparency, metal, and carbon creates something that genuinely looks like a kinetic sculpture. One detail that absolutely demands attention: the mirrors. The mirror housings on this car have more thought, more craftsmanship, and more artistry than most entire cars. When you lock the Utopia, they fold inward in a movement so precise and deliberate, it looks choreographed. It's the kind of thing you'll do 40 times just to watch it happen again. And the whole exhaust system? 6 kilograms. The entire thing weighs 6 kilograms. on a car producing 852 horsepower. Let that sink in. Open the door and pause for a second before you get in. Because when you swing that door open, the smell hits you first. Rich, warm leather. The kind that you associate with heritage watchmakers and Savile Row tailors and things that are built to last a lifetime. It's intoxicating. Now look inside. Really look. The dashboard isn't a dashboard. It's the inside of a mechanical watch. Every surface is either leather, machined aluminum, or exposed carbon fiber. There are no soft-touch plastics, no cheap trim pieces trying to pass themselves off as something they're not. Everything here is exactly what it appears to be, and every single piece has been obsessed over. The steering wheel started its life as a 40-kilogram solid block of aluminum. Engineers then spent hours, days, machining it down to just 1.8 kilograms. The result is something that feels almost weightless in your hands, with a tactile quality that makes you want to hold it even when the car is parked. The seats are standard fit, adjusting forward and backward with a simple latch. They sound basic when you describe them that way, but the moment you sit down, you understand. They hold you exactly right, firm where they need to be, supportive through corners, and wrapped in leather so fine it almost feels like a crime to wear anything rough when you're sitting in them. Look up, and there are glass roof panels, letting light pour into the cabin and making the whole space feel far bigger than you'd expect from a hypercar this size. Visibility forward, through that hugely curved windscreen and those upright A-pillars, is genuinely remarkable. You sit low and you'd expect to feel claustrophobic, but it's the opposite. It feels open, theatrical, like being on a stage. Turn the ignition, watch what happens. The dials sweep, the gauges swing to full deflection and then settle back to zero. Little mechanical movements happening all at once, like a mechanical watch being wound. And then everything comes alive. It's pure drama, and it costs nothing except the decision to care about the details. There is one small concession to modernity, a screen. It's here because modern regulations and practicality demand it. But the designers have worked hard to minimize its intrusion, keeping the analog instruments as large and dominant as possible. And then there's the gearbox linkage. If you're an ASMR fan, or even if you're not, sit in the Utopia and operate that manual shifter for 5 minutes. The mechanical sounds, the precise clicks, the feel of each gate as the lever finds its plane, it's meditative, it's addictive. It's the kind of thing that makes you realize how much has been lost in modern cars in the pursuit of speed and efficiency. The light switches alone are worth mentioning. Small, precise, mechanical toggles. Each one makes a sound and delivers a tactile response that is completely unnecessary and completely wonderful. Performance and engine. Here's where the Utopia becomes something else entirely. Under that gorgeous sculptural bodywork lives a 6-liter twin-turbocharged V12, sourced from Mercedes-AMG, and then, significantly modified. The result is 852 horsepower and 811 pound-feet of torque. On paper, those numbers are extraordinary. On the road, in the wet, on a mountain pass in northern Italy, they are genuinely intimidating. The engine revs to around 6,500 to 7,000 RPM. That's not the ceiling of a naturally aspirated V12 screaming toward 9,000. But what it lacks in stratospheric rev range, it more than compensates for in character. There's a sharpness to the throttle response, an immediacy that makes the car feel alive, and honestly, slightly feral. Mid-range punch arrives like a freight train, and the sound, the exhaust note through those 4 titanium pipes, is one of the finest sounds in the automotive world right now. Animalistic, ballistic, completely addictive. And the gearbox? Manual. A proper 6-speed, row-your-own manual gearbox. In a world where every other hypercar manufacturer has moved to twin-clutch automatics and paddle shifters, Pagani has gone the other way. And they're not alone. A few other visionary manufacturers are doing the same. But the Utopia does it with a sense of occasion that is completely unmatched. Getting the gears right requires attention. The centering on second and third, and then on fourth and fifth, means you need to be deliberate with your inputs. It's not a car that forgives laziness, it rewards commitment. And that, honestly, is exactly what a car like this should do. The adaptive suspension is remarkably well judged. On a difficult mountain road with uneven surfaces, it absorbs imperfections with a suppleness that you wouldn't expect. There's more compliance here than the aggressive styling would suggest. This car is genuinely livable, not just on track days or perfect smooth circuits, but on real roads, in real conditions, with real weather. Grip from the Pirelli Corsa tires is exceptional, even in the wet. The steering is quick and accurate, communicative enough that you always know what the front end is doing, precise enough that placing the car becomes intuitive very quickly. And the brakes, carbon ceramic, developed in partnership with Brembo. The stopping power is extraordinary. High-speed approaches to hairpins, trail braking into a corner, pushing the limits on a wet road. These brakes inspire confidence in a way that makes you push harder than you probably should. The car weighs 1,340 kilograms, which sounds like a number until you realize it's lighter than a McLaren 750S. For a car with this level of craftsmanship, this quantity of exotic materials, this amount of mechanical complexity, that's a genuinely remarkable achievement. Multiple driving modes, including a super soft setting, sport, and race, allow you to dial in the experience. On wet Italian mountain roads, soft mode is your friend. The traction control, when engaged, manages the 852 horsepower with intelligence and subtlety. Turn it off and things get considerably more exciting, considerably more quickly. Pros and cons. Let's be honest about this car, because it deserves honesty. What the Utopia gets absolutely right. The manual gearbox is a masterpiece. In an era where driving engagement is being quietly removed from the equation, this car puts it front and center. The craftsmanship is genuinely unmatched. No other production car pays this much attention to detail at every single level. The weight is astonishing for what it is. The driving experience is rich, layered, and deeply rewarding. And it's more usable than you'd think. The visibility, the suspension compliance, the ergonomics all make it a car you could genuinely live with day to day. Where the Utopia falls short. The gear lever, as magnificent as it is to operate, has a slightly rubbery quality to its feel that doesn't quite match the metal precision of everything else around it. On longer drives, there's a noticeable level of cabin noise. Wind and engine sound find their way in more than in something like a Grand Tourer. And working out which gear you're in, particularly between the centering planes, takes some getting used to. It's not intuitive immediately. And then there's the price. The Utopia is not a car you decide to buy after watching a video. It exists in a financial stratosphere that removes it from the conversation for almost everyone. But then, that's always been true of Pagani. That's the point. Who is this car for? This is not a car for someone who wants to win a drag race. It's not a car for someone who needs the fastest lap time, the most downforce, the most aggressive track setup. This is a car for someone who understands that speed is only one dimension of what a car can be. Someone who has driven extraordinary machinery and still feels like something is missing. Someone who wants to feel connected to the road, to the machine, to the act of driving itself. It's for the collector who doesn't just want to own something rare, but something that means something. Something built with intention and obsession and care that goes far beyond what the market demands. It's for the driver who has never forgotten their first time behind the wheel of something truly special, who still believes that a great car should make every drive feel like an event, not a commute. If that sounds like you, welcome to the Utopia. Conclusion, plus call to action. So here we are, standing at the end of a mountain pass in northern Italy, rain still falling, the exhaust still ticking as the engine cools, and the question that's been building through this entire drive finally arrives. Is the Pagani Utopia the greatest hypercar ever made? That's a complicated question. It's not the fastest. It's not the most aerodynamically advanced. It doesn't have the most sophisticated electronics or the most aggressive track setup. But ask yourself this, is that what a great car is? Is that what we're actually chasing when we care about cars? The Utopia argues that there's something more important than all of that. That the experience of driving, the sounds, the smells, the physical connection between your hands and the road is the whole point. That beauty isn't a bonus feature. It's the product. That a car should move you before it ever moves. And by that measure, the Pagani Utopia might be the most important hypercar of this generation. A rolling argument that craftsmanship still matters. That analog still has a place. That someone, somewhere, still cares enough to build things this way. If you've made it this far, you get it. You feel it. This is why cars matter. Drop a comment below. What would you choose? The Utopia's manual gearbox magic or a modern twin-clutch rocket? Let's argue about it respectfully in the comments. If this video moved you even a little, hit that like button. It genuinely helps more than you know. And if you're new here, you've just found your home. Subscribe to Luxury and Scale, because this is where we don't just talk about cars, we feel them. See you in the next one.